If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe, it really helps out our channel. Hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos. This channel is running a contest. When I hit 250 subscribers, one lucky winner will get $100. All you need to do is be subscribed and comment to win. It's that easy. YouTube has nothing to do with this video, it is run by this channel only. It has been over 2 years considering that the perplexing loss of life of Captain Thomas Mantell. Mantell died mysteriously in the skies south of Fort Knox. But earlier than his radio went silent, he dispatched a bizarre message to Godman Air Force Base. The guys who heard it will by no means overlook it. It used to be January 7, 1948. Crowded into the Godman Field Tower, a team of Air Force officers stared up at the afternoon sky. For simply an instant, something gleamed through the damaged clouds south of the base. High above the field, 3 P-51 combatants climbed with swift urgency. Heading south, they rapidly vanished. The clock in the tower examined 2:45. Colonel Guy Hicks, the CO, slowly put down his binoculars. If the factor was nonetheless there, the clouds now hid it. All they ought to do used to be wait. The first alarm had come from Fort Knox, when Army MPs had relayed a country police warning. A massive sparkling object had been viewed in the sky, moving towards Godman Field. Hundreds of startled human beings had considered it at Madisonville, 90 miles away. 30 minutes later, it had zoomed up over the base. Colonel Hicks glanced round at the relaxation of the guys in the tower. They all had a dazed look. Every man there had viewed the thing, as it barreled south of the field. Even through the skinny clouds, its intermittent purple glow had hinted at some mysterious supply of power. Something backyard their understanding. It used to be Woods, the exec, who had estimated its size. Hicks shook his head. That was once unbelievable. But something had hung over Godman Field for nearly an hour. The CO grew to become shortly as the loudspeaker, tuned to the P-51s, unexpectedly got here to life. 13. Captain Mantell to Godman. Tower Mantell to Godman Tower. The flight leader's voice had a strained tone. "I've sighted the thing," he said. "It appears metallic and it is notable in size." The CO and Woods stared at every other. No one spoke. "The thing's beginning to climb," Mantell stated swiftly. "It's at 12 o'clock high, making half of my speed. I'll attempt to shut in." "In 5 minutes," Mantell pronounced again. The unusual metal object had speeded up, used to be now making 360 or more. At 3:08, Mantell's wingman known as In. Both he and the different pilot had seen the bizarre object. But Mantell had outclimbed them and was once misplaced in the clouds. 7 minutes dragged by. The guys in the tower sweated out the silence. Then, at 3:15, Mantell made a hasty contact. "It's nevertheless above me, making my pace or better. I'm going up to 20,000 feet. If I'm no closer, I'll abandon chase." It was once his final report. Minutes later, his fighter disintegrated with incredible force. The falling wreckage was once scattered for heaps of feet. When Mantell failed to reply the tower, one of his pilots started out a search. Climbing to 33,000 feet, he flew 100 miles to the south. But the factor that lured Mantell to his dying had vanished from the sky. 10 days after Mantell used to be killed, I realized of a curious sequel to the Godman affair. An AP account in the New York Times had caught my attention. The story, launched at Fort Knox, admitted Mantell had died whilst chasing a flying saucer. Colonel Hicks used to be quoted as having watched the object, which was once nonetheless unidentified. But there was once no point out of Mantell's radio messages, no trace of the thing's great size. 14. Though I knew the lid used to be probable on, I went to the Pentagon. When the scare had first broken, in the summer season of '47, I had talked with Captain Tom Brown, who was once coping with saucer inquiries. But by way of now, Brown had been shifted, and no one in the press branch would admit knowing the small print of the Mantell saucer chase. "We simply do not be aware of the answer," a protection officer advised me. "There's a rumor," I said, "it's a secret Air Force missile that now and again goes out of control." "Good God, man," he exploded. "If it was, do you assume we might be ordering pilots to chase the damn things?" "No, and I did not say I believed it. I waited till he cooled down." "This order you mentioned, is it for all Air Force pilots, or one-of-a-kind fighter units?" "I did not say it was once a distinct order," he answered quickly. "All pilots have routine guidelines to file uncommon items." "They had opponents alerted on the coast, when the scare first broke," I reminded him. "Are these orders nevertheless in force?" He shook his head. No, no longer that I be aware of. After a second he added, all I can inform you is that the Air Force is nevertheless investigating. We sincerely don't be aware of the answer. As I went out the mall entrance, I ran into Jack Daly, one of Washington's veteran newsmen. Before the war, Jack and I had achieved magazine portions together, typically on Axis espionage and communist activity. I informed him I used to be trying to discover the reply to Mantle's death. You heard anything? I requested him. Only what was once in the AP story, stated Jack. But an INS man advised me they had a saucer story from Columbus, Ohio, and it may have been the equal one they noticed at Fort Knox. I neglected that. What used to be it? 15. They sighted the component at the Air Force Subject Outdoor of Columbus. It used to be around sundown, about 2 hours after that pilot used to be killed in Kentucky. Anybody chase it? I asked. No. They did not have time to take off, I guess. This INS man stated it used to be going like hell. Fast as a jet, anyway. Did he say what it regarded like? The Air Force boys stated it was once as massive as AC-47, stated Jack. Maybe bigger. It had a reddish-orange exhaust streaming out behind. They could see it for miles. If you hear any more, let me know, I said. Jack promised he would. What do you assume they are? He requested me. It's obtained me stumped. Russia would not be trying out missiles over here. Anyway, I cannot agree with they've bought something like that. And I cannot see the Air Force letting pilots get killed to cover something we have got. 1 week later, I heard that a top-secret unit had been set up at Wright Field to look into all saucer reports. When I known as the Pentagon, they admitted this much, and that used to be all. In the subsequent few months, different flying disc testimonies hit the front pages. 2 Eastern Airline pilots said a double-decked thriller ship sighted near Montgomery, Alabama. I discovered of 2 different sightings, one over the Pacific Ocean and one in California. The 2D one, considered through field glasses, was once described as rocket-shaped, as massive as a B-29. There were additionally rumors of discs being tracked by way of radar, however it was once nearly a year earlier than I validated these reports. When Purdy wired me, early in May of '49, I had one half forgotten the discs. It had been months considering any essential sightings had been reported. But his message rapidly revived my curiosity. If he idea the problem was hot, I knew he should have reasons. When I walked into his workplace at 67 West 44th, Purdy stubbed out his cigarette and shook hands. He looked at me through his glasses for a moment. Then he stated abruptly, "You comprehend something about the discs?" 16. If you suggest what they are, no. He motioned for me to take a seat down. Then he swiveled his chair around, his shoulders hunched forward, and frowned out the window. Have you considered the Post this week? I advised him no. There's something damned queer going on. For 15 months, Project Saucer is buttoned up tight. Top secret. Then suddenly, Forrestal receives the Saturday Evening Post to run 2 articles, brushing the entire element off. The first piece hits the stands and then what happens? Purdy swung around, jabbed his finger at a report on his desk. That identical day, the Air Force rushes out this Project Saucer report. It admits they have not recognized the discs in any vital cases. They say it's nonetheless serious enough. Wait a minute, he thumbed via the stapled papers, to require regular vigilance with the aid of Project Saucer personnel and the civilian population. You'd assume the Post would make a public kick, I said. I do not imply it is an out-and-out denial, stated Purdy. It would not point out the Post just contradicts it. In fact, the record contradicts itself. It appears as if they're attempting to warn human beings but they're scared to say too much. I regarded at the title on the report, a digest of preliminary studies through the Air Materiel Command, Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, on flying saucers. Have the papers caught it yet? I requested Purdy. You imply it's contradicting the Post? He shook his head. No, the Pentagon press launch did not get a great deal space. How many editors would wade via a 6,000-word authorities report? Even if they did, they'd have to evaluate it, object for item, with the Post piece. Who wrote the Post story? Purdy lit a cigarette and frowned out once more at the skyscrapers. 17. Sidney Shallett, and he is careful. He had Forrestal's backing. The Air Force flew him around, organized interviews, supposedly gave him internal stuff. He spent 2 months on it. They okayed his script, which virtually says the sources are bunk. Then they reneged on it. Maybe some pinnacle brass abruptly determined it was once the incorrect coverage to brush it off, I suggested. Why the rapid change, demanded Purdy. Let's say they offered the post on masking up the truth, in the pursuits of security. It's possible, even though I do not consider it. Or they ought to without a doubt have fed them a fake story. Either way, why did they rush this contradiction the minute the post hit the stands? Something serious happened, I said, after the post went to press. Yes, however what? Purdy stated impatiently. That's what we have acquired to discover out. Does Shallett's first piece point out Mantle's death? Explains it perfectly. You understand what Mantle was once chasing? The planet Venus. That's the post's answer? I said, incredulously. It's what the Air Force contract astronomer instructed Shallett. I've checked with 2 astronomers here. They say that even when Venus is at full magnitude you can barely see it in the daylight even when you are searching for it. It was once solely half of magnitude that day, so it used to be virtually invisible. How'd the Air Force assume everybody to accept as true with that answer? I said. Purdy shrugged. They deny it used to be Venus in this report. But that is what they instructed Shallett, that all these Air Force officers, the pilots, the Kentucky Country Police, and various hundred humans at Madisonville mistook Venus for a metal disc a number of 100 toes in diameter. It's a surprise Shallett believed it. I don't assume he did. He says if it wasn't Venus, it need to have been a balloon. 18. What's the Air Force answer? I requested Purdy. Look in the report. They say something Mantle chased, they name it a mysterious object, is nonetheless unidentified. I glanced through the case report, on web page 5. It quoted Mantle's radio report that the factor used to be metal and superb in size. Linked with the dying of Mantle used to be the Lockbourne, Ohio, report, which tied in with what Jack Daly had instructed me, over 12 months before. I study the report. On the identical day, about 2 hours later, a sky phenomenon used to be observed via quite a few watches over Lockbourne Air Force Base, Columbus, Ohio. It was once described as round or oval, large than AC-47, and touring in stage flight quicker than 500 miles per hour. The object was observed from the Lockbourne Commentary Tower for greater than 20 minutes. Observers stated it glowed from white to amber, leaving an amber exhaust path 5 instances its personal length. It made motions like an elevator and at one time seemed to contact the ground. No sound was once heard. Finally, the object dwindled and decreased towards the horizon. Purdy buzzed for his secretary, and she delivered me a replica of the first Post article. You can get a replica of this Air Force document in Washington, Purdy advised me. This is the solely one I have. But you may discover the equal reply for most of the necessary cases: the sightings at Muroc Air Base, the airline pilot's reports, the discs Kenneth Arnold saw, they're all unidentified. I understand the Arnold case. That used to be the first sighting. You've bought contacts in Washington, Purdy went on. Start at the Pentagon first. They comprehend we're working on it. Sam Bowl, the first man on this job, used to be down there for a day or 2. What did he discover out? Symington instructed him the sources have been bunk. Secretary Johnson admitted they had some pictures we'd heard about a secret image taken at Harmon Field, Newfoundland. The tip stated this saucer scared hell out of some pilots and Air Force guys up there. 19. A primary took Bowl to some Air Force colonel and Bowl requested to see the pictures. The colonel stated they did not have any. He grew to become crimson when the major stated Symington had instructed Bowl about the pictures. Did Bowl get to see them? I said. No, grunted Purdy, and I'll guess $20 you won't either. But try, anyway. And take a look at on a rumor that they've tracked some discs with radar. One case was once supposed to be at an Air Force base in Japan. As I was once leaving, Purdy gave me a précis of sighting reports. Some of these have been published, some we dug up ourselves, he said. We got some private stuff from airline pilots. It's highly apparent the Air Force has tried to hold them quiet. All right, I said. I'll get started. Maybe matters don't seem to be sewed up so tightly, now this record is out. We've determined out some matters about Project Saucer, stated Purdy. Whether it is a cover-up or an actual investigation, there may be a lot of hush-hush business to it. They've bought astronomers and astrophysicists working for them, additionally rocket experts, technical analysts, and Air Force Special Intelligence. We've been advised they can name on any authority's organization for help, and I comprehend they're the usage of the FBI. It was once constructing up higher than I had thought. If countrywide safety is involved, I advised Purdy, they can shut us up in a hurry. If they inform me so, okay, stated Purdy. He delivered grimly, but I suppose they're making a horrific mistake. They possibly assume they're doing what's right. But the fact would possibly come out the incorrect way. It is possible, I thought, that the sources belong to Russia. If it turns out to be a Soviet missile, number me out, I said. We'd have the Pentagon and the FBI on our necks. All right, if this is the answer. He chuckled. But you may also be in for a jolt. Just the concept of considerable flying discs was once brilliant enough. It was once almost as challenging to accept as true with that such missiles should have been developed without something leaking out. Yet we had produced the A-bomb in comparative secrecy, and I knew we had been working on long-range guided missiles. There used to be already a layout for a 3,000-mile take-a-look-at range. Our supersonic planes had hit round 2,000 miles an hour. Our two-stage rockets had long passed over 200 miles high, in accordance to reports. If an atomic engine had been secretly developed, it should give an explanation for the velocity and vary of the sources. But I stored coming lower back to Mantle's loss of life and the Air Force orders for pilots to chase the sources. If the discs have been American missiles, that didn't jibe. When I reached the lobby, I determined it used to be 10 after 4. I caught a taxi and made the Congressional Limited with simply 1 minute to spare. In the membership car, I settled down to seem to be at Purdy's summary. Skipping via the pages, I noticed various acquainted cases. Here and there, Purdy had scrawled quick feedback or suggestions. Beside the Eastern Airline record of a double-deck saucer, he had written, check rumor equal kind viewed over Holland about this date. Also, comparable Philippine Islands report date unknown. I went return to the beginning. The first case listed used to be that of Kenneth Arnold, a Boise businessman, who had set off the saucer scare. Arnold was flying his personal airplane from Chehalis to Yakima, Washington, when he noticed a vibrant flash on his wing. Looking towards Mount Rainier, he noticed 9 glowing discs outlined against the snow, every one about the dimension of AC-54. They flew shut to the mountaintops, in a diagonal chain-like line, he said later. It was once as if they had been linked together. 21 the discs regarded to be 20 to 25 miles away, he said, and moving at amazing speed. Arnold's estimate was once 1,200 miles an hour. I watched them about 3 minutes, he said. They have been swerving in and out round the excessive mountain peaks. They have been flat, like a pie pan, and so vivid they mirrored the solar like a mirror. I in no way noticed some things so fast. The date used to be June 24, 1947. On this identical day there used to be any other saucer report, which obtained very little notice. A Portland prospector named Fred Johnson, who was once working up in the Cascade Mountains, noticed 5 or 6 discs banking in the sun. He watched them through his telescope various seconds. Then he unexpectedly observed that the compass hand on his extraordinary watch used to be weaving wildly from aspect to side. Johnson insisted he had now not heard of the Arnold report, which was once now not broadcast till early evening. Kenneth Arnold's story used to be normally acquired with amusement. Most Americans have been unaware that the Pentagon had been receiving disc reports as early as January. The information and radio feedback on Arnold's report delivered countless different incidents to light, which observers had saved to themselves for concern of ridicule. At Oklahoma City, a personal pilot advised Air Force investigators he had considered a massive spherical object in the sky at some stage in the latter phase of May. It was once flying 3 instances quicker than a jet, he said, and barring any sound. Citizens of Weiser, Idaho, described 2 atypical fast-moving objects they had viewed on June 12. The sources had been heading southeast, now and then shedding to a decreased altitude, then hastily mountaineering again. Several mysterious objects have been said flying at top-notch velocity close to Spokane, simply 3 days before Arnold's experience. And 4 days after his encounter, an Air Force pilot flying close to Lake Mead, Nevada, was once startled to see 1/2 sources flash with the aid of his plane. Even at this early factor in the scare, respectable reviews had been contradicting each other. Simply after Arnold's story broke, the Air Force admitted it used to be checking on the Thriller discs. On July 4, the Air Force cited that no further investigation was once needed, it used to be all hallucination. That equal day, 22 Wright Field informed the Associated Press that the Air Materiel Command was attempting to locate the answer. The 4th of July used to be a red-letter day in the flying saucer mystery. At Portland, Oregon, lots of citizens, such as former Air Force pilots, police, harbor pilots, and deputy sheriffs, noticed dozens of glowing discs flying at excessive speed. The things, regarded to be at least 40,000 toes in the air, perhaps a whole lot higher. That equal day, discs have been sighted at Seattle, Vancouver, and different Northwest cities. The swiftly developing reviews have been met with combined ridicule and alarm. One of the skeptical team used to be Captain E.J. Smith, of United Airlines. "I'll accept as true with them when I see them," he instructed airline employees earlier than taking off from Boise the afternoon of the 4th. Just about sunset, his airliner was once flying over Emmett, Idaho, when Captain Smith and his co-pilot, Ralph Stevens, noticed 5 queer objects in the sky ahead. Smith rang for the stewardess, Marty Morrow, and the three of them watched the sources for a number of minutes. Then 4 extra of the discs got here into sight. Though it was once not possible to inform their size, because their altitude used to be unknown, the crew used to be positive they had been greater than the aircraft they have been in. After about 10 minutes the discs disappeared. The Air Force shortly denied having something similar to the objects Captain Smith described. "We have no experimental craft of that nature in Idaho or somewhere else," and legit stated in Washington. "We're totally mystified." The Navy stated it had made an investigation, and had no answers. There had been rumors that the discs have been souped-up variations of the Navy's Flying Flapjack, a twin-engine round craft regarded technically as the XF-5U-1. But the Navy insisted that solely one mannequin had been built, and that it used to be now out of service. In Chicago, 2 astronomers spiked guesses that the discs may be meteors. Dr. Gerard Kioipa, director of the University of Chicago Observatory, stated flatly that they could not be meteors. 23. They're in all likelihood man-made, he advised the AP. Dr. Oliver Lee, director of Northwestern's observatory, agreed with Kioipa. "The Army, Navy, and Air Force are working secretly on all kinds of things," he said. "Remember the A-bomb secrecy and the radar indicators to the moon." As I went through Purdy's summary, I recalled my personal response after the United Airlines report. After seeing the Pentagon comment I had referred to as Up Captain Tom Brown, at Air Force Public Relations. "Are you honestly taking this seriously?" I requested him. "Well, we cannot simply bypass it," he said. "There are too many dependable pilots telling the equal story, flat, spherical objects in a position to outmaneuver regular planes, and quicker than something we have. Too many testimonies tally." I instructed him I'd heard that the Civil Air Patrol in Wisconsin and different states used to be beginning a sky search. "We've received a jet at Maroc, and 6 opponents standing with the aid of at Portland proper now," Brown said. "Armed? I've no document on that. But I recognize some of them raise photographic equipment." 2 days later an airline pilot from the coast instructed me that some opponents had been armed and the pilots ordered to convey down the discs if humanly possible. That identical day, Wright Field admitted it was once checking stories of disc-shaped missiles seen these days in the Pacific Northwest and in Texas. Following this was once an AP story, dated July 7, quoting an unnamed Air Force respectable in Washington. The flying saucers may additionally be one of 3 things. 1. Solar reflection on low-hanging clouds. A Washington scientist, asked for comment, stated this used to be hardly ever possible. 24. 2. Small meteors which ruin up, their crystals catching the rays of the sun. But it would appear that they would have been noticed falling and fragments would have been found. 3. Icing prerequisites ought to have fashioned massive hailstones, and they may have flattened out and glided a bit, giving the impact of horizontal movement even although falling vertically. By this time all of us used to be getting into the act. The discs are prompted via the transmutation of atomic energy, stated an anonymous scientist, supposed to be on the workforce of California Tech. The college shortly denied it. Dr. Vannevar Bush, world-famous scientist, and Dr. Merle Tuve, inventor of the proximity fuse, each declared they would recognize of any secret American missiles and didn't. At Syracuse, New York, Dr. Harry Steckel, Veterans Administration psychiatrist, scoffed at the recommendation of mass hysteria. "Too many sane people are seeing the things. The authorities is in all likelihood conducting some progressive experiments." On July 8 extra discs have been reported. Out at Maroc Air Force Base, the place top-secret planes and gadgets are tested. 6 fast-moving silvery white saucers have been viewed via pilots and floor officers. That afternoon the Air Force printed it used to be working on a case involving a Navy rocket specialist named C.T. Zome. While on a secret Navy mission to New Mexico, in connection with rocket tests, Zome had viewed a vibrant silvery disk flying above the desert. He was once crossing the desolate tract with 3 other scientists when he noticed the peculiar object flashing northward at an altitude of about 10,000 feet. I'm certain it was once no longer a meteor, stated Zone. It may want to have been a guided missile, however I in no way heard of whatever like it. By this time, saucer reviews had come in from nearly 40 states. Alarm was increasing, and there have been needs that radar be used to tune the discs. The Air Force spoke back that there was once now not adequate radar tools to blanket the nation, however that its pilots have been on the lookout for the sources. 25-1 document referred to a curious document from Twin Falls, Idaho. The disc cited there was once stated to have flown so low that the treetops whirled as if in a violent storm. Someone had phoned Purdy about a disc tracked by way of weather balloon observers at Richmond, Virginia. There used to be some other note on a sighting at Hickam Field, Honolulu, and 2 reports of unidentified objects considered close to Anchorage, Alaska. A typed listing of worldwide sightings had been made up by way of the personnel at True. It contained many instances that have been new to me, reviews from Paraguay, Belgium, Turkey, Holland, Germany, and the Scandinavian countries. At the backside of this memo, Purdy had written, "Keep checking on rumor that the Soviet has a Project Saucer, too. Could be planted." From the mass of reports, John Dubarry, the aviation editor of True, had methodically labored out an common photograph of the discs. The normal report is that they are spherical or oval. This may want to be an elliptical object seen end-on, metal-looking, very bright, either shining white or silvery colored. They can cross at extraordinarily excessive speed, hover, speed up rapidly, and outmaneuver normal aircraft. The lights are generally considered singly, very few formations reported. They seem to have the identical speed, acceleration, and potential to maneuver. In several cases, they have been capable to steer clear of Air Force planes in nighttime encounters. Going over the cases, I realized that Purdy and his body of workers had dug up at least 50 reviews that had now not seemed in the papers. A few of these proved incorrect, however a test with the Air Force case reviews launched on December 30, 1949, confirmed that True's documents contained all the vital items. These instances covered sightings at 11 Air Force bases and 14 American airports, reviews from ships at sea, and a rating of encounters by means of airline and personal pilots. Witnesses protected Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force officers, state and town police, FBI agents, climate observers, shipmasters, astronomers, and heaps of proper strong American citizens. I discovered later that many witnesses had been investigated through the FBI to weed out crackpot reports. 26 I ended up badly puzzled. The proof used to be greater extraordinary than I had suspected. It used to be simple that many reviews had been totally suppressed, or at least stored out of the papers. There was once something ominous about it. No count what the answer, it was once serious, ample to be saved, cautiously hidden. If it have been a Soviet missile, I thought, God assist us. They'd scooped up a lot of Nazi scientists and combat secrets. And the Germans had been a long way beforehand of us on guided missiles. But why would they provide us a 2-year warning, testing the matters overtly over America? It didn't make feel.